unintended. Don't take advantage of it. Mark Calabria, welcome. It's great to have you on the program.
Good morning, Hugh.
I just want to give you the floor to first describe. People don't know what the Federal Housing Finance Agency is to begin with. What do you do, and what does this bill do for people who are making mortgage payments for which they don't have money or rent payments for which they don't have money?
A great question. First, let me mention FHFA, Federal Housing Finance Agency that I run. We regulate Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and the Federal Home Loan Bank, which are essentially the backroom operations of the mortgage market, the secondary market that you don't see. And that covers about half of the mortgage market. And what we set up a couple of weeks ago, which Congress last week put in codification of law, is that we would have a forbearance program for those who were suffering an income loss, job loss because of the virus. And so that's the first thing to remember. You're eligible if you've lost your job or you've had a decline in income, your spouse has lost their job, and it's a timeout. So this is an important part for people to keep in mind, too. It's forbearance. It's not forgiveness. So let's say we're in this for 2 months, 3 months. You don't pay your mortgage in that time. You get a pause out, and then at the end of that time, when you come back in, the amount is added to the end of the mortgage. So it's not forgiven. You're expected to pay it back. It simply says we're going to give you a timeout if you can't pay your mortgage. So if you haven't lost your job, you've suffered no income loss, you're not going to be eligible. You're still expected to pay your mortgage if you're still making the money you were making before. It's also important. I know a lot of people are trying to wonder, well, should I pay this month? Should I hold on to it? What's my liquidity going to be? We have to triage this just like everything else in the healthcare system, for instance, that lenders are getting overwhelmed with calls. Most lenders, they're down 25, 30% in terms of efficiency because like everybody else or like many other people, the lenders are having their people work from home. They're practicing social distancing. So they've got a real bottleneck of calls. The lenders I've talked to say that 70, 80% of the calls are not people facing immediate hardship, but people who just want to know what their options are. And that's fine. That's terrific. We all want to know what our options are. But I would really say if you're in that camp, wait at least till after the beginning of April so we can get past that first hump of people who are having trouble. And then you can call then, ask your questions. The lenders I've talked to also say they're about a week away from having a digital solution where you can just go online, find out what your options are that way. So what I would say is if you're not in need of immediate help, please wait, give it at least a week, if not more. And then let us focus on those who do need help. And again, this is really just a moment, a timeout, so that everybody can get through this, so we can try to figure out how long this is going to last to get everybody back current again.
So let me emphasize a few points. One, I have a longtime sponsor, Mark, andrewandtodd.com. They have been digital for years, and therefore they've got a nice long pipeline. People fill it out online. They methodically move through it. They tell people what their options are. They're fine. People can call them. Don't call your local bank. Don't do it. They're overwhelmed. And if you're just looking to save $100 a month, we're not talking about you. We're talking about people whose restaurant closed. By the way, do you handle any of the renter relief, or is that in a different part of the bill?
We are handling the renter relief. It's a little less direct because what FHFA does is we regulate the mortgage lenders, so we reach through via the mortgage. So what you need to do if you're a renter, if you don't think you can pay April rent, or even if you don't think you can pay May rent, first thing you need to do is talk to your landlord. And what we're offering is forbearance for the landlord who has the mortgage. And so the way this works is that if the landlord is willing to pass along that to you, so the landlord only gets forbearance, but the landlord could call their lender and say, listen, I can't pay the mortgage this month because I'm not getting rent from the renter this month. And if they agree to essentially not evict you, so the landlord's got to agree, listen, I'm going to keep them in there, at least for non-payment of rent. So, if there's a problem tenant for a number of reasons, they can still evict. But as long as the landlord chooses to get in the forbearance program, and it's important, the landlord's going to have to pay this back just like a homeowner would. So there's got to be the expectation in this case where, the landlord may give the renter a break for 2 months and then say, well, we'll figure out some way to get caught up later. Or the landlord could forgive it too. But so again, if you're having trouble paying rent, talk to your landlord. And you can tell your landlord, listen, if you're willing to help me out, there's a government program that allows you to take a pause on your mortgage so that you don't have to pay during this time either.
I am talking with Mark Calabria. He is the head of the Federal Housing Finance Agency. You can follow him on Twitter at Mark Calabria. You can also go to FHFA.gov for details. I want to review this again because repetition.
Absolutely.
If you're like most Americans, you got a 30-year mortgage, 360 monthly payments standing in front of you. You've marched through those payments. Maybe you've made 40 of them. Maybe you've made 150 of them. The government is not going to absolve you of making those 360 total payments. They're just going to delay 2 to 3 months of those payments because of forbearance if you qualify, but we can't overwhelm the circuit board, right, Mark? We've got people have to ask
absolutely
with grace. They have to be concerned for their fellow citizens and not take up your time or money this way.
And that's such an important point. And we do want to be able to help everybody who needs help, and it really is so important. And it's really understandable if you got questions and you want to know what your options are. But as you said, there's only so much call volume. So, and lenders are just getting overwhelmed. And again, it's not the lender's fault. They're trying to tell their staff to work from home so that we can all practice the appropriate social distancing. But what it does mean is that we want to be able to get to people who need it most, we're really going to have to ask those who just want to know what their options are to wait a couple of days, wait a week. And again, there's going to be some digital solutions that are coming. You're going to be able to get call quicker. If you call now, you're going to wait an hour. You call in a week, you'll get through in 10 minutes or 5 minutes. And so it's just, again, let us focus on it. And if you are in that camp that does need help, again, the best thing to do is figure out what's been your decline in income. So if your spouse has lost their job, you've got yours. You can pay half your mortgage. Just come in and say, listen, we can pay half. It's better because it's not forgiven. You'll have to catch back up. You should try to pay as much as you can. But if you can't pay at all, you've lost your job, or worst case, you or someone in your family is taken ill because of this. There's help there. There's a pause there, and we want to be able to give people a chance to get back on their feet.
Now, it's a little in the weeds, but I want people to understand it's not the company that originated your loan. It's the company that is servicing, the service provider with whom you are working. Am I not correct, Director Calabria?
That is absolutely correct. So just think about this. Who do you send your check to every month, or who do you have the deposit withdrawal taken out? That's who you contact. That's who you talk to, and they're going to be the ones that try to help you out. We call that the servicer, but again, that could be the lender you got the loan with, or maybe somebody else. But again, it's who you send the check to every month is the one you want to talk to for your loan.
How are they going to authenticate between the genuinely needy and the Sharpie who just figured they're going to just take advantage of the system?
Well, I think because of the need at this, at first, we're really going to try to use the honor system here, which is why it's so important that people don't call who don't need it. Again, reminding, you're going to have to pay it back. So, there's not a real incentive to kind of get out of something if you don't need it. There isn't going to be interest in your charge. So, yes, there'll be an incentive for some people to try to call who don't need it. You will be asked, have you suffered a loss in income? And again, it's so important, just if you don't need help, don't answer it now. Because, again, we have to be able to focus the resources on those who do need help. So there's a little bit of honor system here to this. Over time, once we get it set up, they'll be going back and checking. You could imagine some of the difficulty is that, if you've lost your job because your restaurant you work at is closed out, what's impossible in that case for the lender to call the restaurant and find out whether you still work there or not because they're closed down. But as things start to open up again, as we get to this point, those lenders are going to call then. They're going to start verifying. So we're going to take your word for it on the front end. Once we get it set up and running, once the economy starts to come back for many of these folks, then we're going to start checking. And it's just so important that if, again, there are going to be a number of different types of assistance, let's make sure we focus this on those most in need.
Key question, 30 seconds left. Mark Calabria, thanks for joining me. If you are in the category that qualifies, do you have to make your mortgage payment even if you haven't talked to your service provider?
Yes, absolutely. So, and it's important you talk to your service provider. Even if you lost your job and you need help, you have to call the lender. It's only going to be eligible if you call the lender.
That's it. You've got to call your whoever is sending you the coupon, whoever you send the check to, you've got to talk to them. And you might want to visit FHFA.gov for all the rules, but there is relief out there. Go and get it. Mark.